Starting from the Mishnah on Daf Gimel Halacha Beis. Zok the Mishnah Masnisen. Amar Rav Yehuda said, Barishaina, in the beginning, what would they do with Klayim? It's mentioned, they would announce on Rosh Chodesh Adar to get rid of the Klayim, and then on Chamish Asa Ba'adar, they would come and see what's going on with the Klayim. Shliach Bezdin would go around. So Barishaina, in the beginning, what they did is as follows. Haya Oikrin, they would uproot the Klayim, and they would throw the produce of whatever they uprooted in front over there for the people, for the owners. So the reason they would throw it in front of them is to embarrass them, so people should see that they had to uproot from their field and there's Klayim here. But what happened was they had to uproot the Klayim, but the people were able to use this produce to feed for their animals. You're not allowed to eat the Klayim, but you're allowed to have anah from it, so they can use it to feed it. But then, when the Oivri Aveda that were keeping Klayim were much more, the Shliach Bezdin would take the Klayim, uproot it, and he wouldn't throw it in front of them for the people, for them to be able to use, but he would take it and throw it into the way, and it would be trampled upon, and they wouldn't be able to use it. And then, Hiskinu, eventually, the Takana was instituted, Shihiu, Mafkirin Eskal Asada. Anybody that did not uproot his Klayim, by the time the Shliach Bezdin came, they would make his entire field hefker. So now the Gemara here brings a braisa that describes exactly this Indian of the three time periods regarding what the Shliach Bezdin would do with the Klayim. Tani Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Barishaina, in the beginning, they would uproot the Klayim and they would throw it in front of for the people in their fields. And the people that had this Klayim in their fields had two reasons to be happy. One is at a free service. The Bezdin came and weeded their field for them. And another reason was, Menachshin, so the same. And another reason was, they had the Klayim for themselves in the fields. They were able to use it to feed their animals. So when there were more people that had this Klayim and were not taking it out, they took out the Klayim and they didn't give it to them. They threw it out on the way to be trampled upon. Afal became, but still, this wasn't a deterrent. They were still happy. That their fields were being weeded. So eventually the takana was shiyu mafkirin kol asada kula. That the Bezdin, the Shliach Bezdin that came and saw that you did not take out your Klayim, they were mafkir your entire field. Now the Gemara brings the source for the Indian that Bezdin could do such a thing. Bezdin could come and make your entire field hefker. Minayin, from where do I know? Shehefker, Bezdin hefker. That Bezdin has a kayach to be mafkir. This is a concept that's brought up in Shas many, many times regarding all money matters, that Bezdin has a kayach of hefker, Bezdin hefker. So what's the source of this? There's a pasuk that says in Ezra, Ezra over there wanted all Yidden that came up to the second base of Mikdash that they should all come together in Yerushalayim. And he says, whoever's not going to come for 3 days by the advice of the ministers and the elders that they should come to Yerushalayim, Yochram kol rechushay, all of his possessions will be possessed by us, it's going to be hefker, and v'hu yibadol mikol ha'goyla, and it'll be separated from all the entire congregation that came up from Golus. So we see here that he had this kayach to do so, to take away everyone's rechush. But now there's another big chiddush that happens here. What happens when you mafkir your entire field? The person that has his field and the produce that grows, there's a chiyuv of maisris and truma. But if it's hefker, what happens to the maisris? There's no maisris, you're not chayiv in maiser. So could Bezdin make it hefker and then not only take away from this person that is being penalized here for not taking out his Klayim, take away from him, but not only that, they're actually taking away from the people that deserve the Meiser, the Levim that deserve the Meiser. That's what the effect of the Hefker is. Minayin, so from where do I know? That when Bezdin makes the Hefker Bezdin, it's not just a knas for this person, but the Hefker takes fully effect to the extent that it also will pater it from the Meiser. Where do I see this? It's a source for this. So he said, Shamala minada. You can hear this chiddush that it even paters it from Meiser as well from the following braisa, where it says, Ein ma'abrin es Hashanah. You don't make a year a leap year, add another adar, loy b'shvius, not if it's a year of Shemitah. You don't want to extend the Isser of the year of Shemitah. V'loy b'matzah shvius, and not the year after Shemitah, which the Gemara will explain soon. V'ime brua, and if it was made an ibiyar, So then, Harezu Me'uberes, the Ibr takes effect, and what happens? You're adding a month to the year. Chachamim are coming and adding a month of the year. So the last month of the year, instead of it being the Chodesh Tishrei of the following year, it's still Chodesh Elul of the year of Shemitah. And what happens then? The Chodesh Echad Shehu Maisif. So that month that you're adding to the year, Loi Potem Imaisris, is it not going to be Potem from Maisris, just like the halacha is with Shemitah always? So here I see that the Chachamim can be Ma'aber the year. And then they're taking away, that it's l'chayre with the koyach of hefke, bezin, hefke, and they're taking away not only from the person, his produce, that it's not his, but they're also patering it from meiser. So just like we see over here that they can do this, when you get to making a shonim or beres and shmita, to pater from meiser is the same thing as also regarding what we said before, a person that didn't take klayim, that bezin could be mafkir his field, and it'll even become pater from meiser. So this is what we see from here. Before the Gemara will refute this raya, but before it does, it first explains the pshat in this braysa. Ad kedoin, so till there we understand shvius. Why you would not want to make a year of shmita, a shana mu'beres, you don't want to extend it an extra month, the iser. Matzah shvius mai. But what's the reason why you don't want to make also the 8th year, the year after shmita, another month, that it should be a shana mu'beres? What's the reason? Amarav Bun, or others are great, is Amarav Avon, Shalele Rabbis, Be'isa Chodesh. We don't want to add a month to the Isser of Chodesh, because what happens? The produce of the 6th year is the last time they planted. The entire 7th year they didn't plant. And then in the beginning of the 8th year, they planted and they have that produce they're waiting for the 8th year. You're going to extend it another month, so then you're going to have to wait for the Isser Chodesh an extra month. So we don't want to do that. Rab Zira B'Shem Rabbi Lazar, Rab Zira said in the name of Rabbi Lazar, regarding this Isser of not making a Shana Mu'beres in a Shnasa Shmita or in the 8th year, Hadada Omar, this halacha that was said is only Atshele Hitte Rebbe Lahavi Yerek Mechutz La'aretz. When Rebbe did not allow to bring any vegetables from Chutz La'aretz into Eretz Yisrael. So the reason is because if you're bringing vegetables from Chutz La'aretz, the concern was you're going to bring also along from Chutz La'aretz pieces of earth from Chutz La'aretz, which is metame, b'magyo b'masa. So you're going to make things in Eretz Yisrael tame. So l'chatchila there was a gzeira not to bring any vegetables from Chutz La'aretz, even in a year of Shemitah. Then Aval Mishahite Rebbe Lahavi Yerek Mechutz La'aretz. Once Rebbe said that you're allowed to bring vegetables from Chutz La'aretz into Eretz Yisrael into a year of Shemitah, so then there was no shortage of food, of the produce that they needed for the year of Shemitah. So he shvius, he shoshashne shavua. When it comes to looking if you need to make a shana mu'beres or not, we treat Shemitah the same like any other year. You have to look if Pesach is going to come out in Chodesh HaAviv or not. That's the only thing that matters. This year it's a very close call, by the way. Spring, the first day of spring, if I'm not mistaken, was this Shabbos. So we just made it not to have a shana mu'beres this year. Okay, another unique thing about this year, amongst all other unique things of this year. Sagt Gemara weiter. Another thing that was said regarding this idea that you don't make a shana mu'beres on Shemitah or on a matzah Shemitah. So Tani ein ma'abrem v'cholu, when it says here that you don't make this a shana mu'beres. So Amar Rav Mana said about this. Hadad the at Amar, this halacha that we said here, barishaina. This was only in the earlier times. Shahayu ashanim kitiknam, when everything was the way it's supposed to be. There's a few pshatim in this. So the pshat that I'll say is, Shanim Ketiknan means when the Yidden were living in Eretz Yisrael and they had a Beis HaMikdash, the Yidden had their own fields, so therefore Yidden were relying on their own produce to be able to feed themselves, so then we didn't want to extend the Isser extra time. But now, when it's not the way it should be, and most of the land is not even occupied by Yidden, it's Goyim that are living there, so he Shvius and he Shar Shnei Shavua. When it comes to making the Cheshbon, whether you should make it a Shana Mu'beres or not, so the Shemitah year and all other years are treated the same way. Tani, we learned in the Braisa, Shal Beis Rabbi Gamliel, Ebrua b'matzah Shvius miyad. So if it was a year after Shemitah, and they had to make that year a Shana Mu'beres, immediately after the year Shemitah, at the beginning of the year in Rosh Hashanah, they established it immediately to be a Shana Mu'beres. Like it says here, that in the later times, you could make a Shana Mu'beres even in the 7th year Shemitah and even in the 8th year. Now the Gemara comes back and says, the raya that we brought up this brayso for. We were bringing this inyan of Shemitah to prove that Chachamim can add a month, and then it becomes hefker, and even for the purpose of Maestris, it's hefker. And we want to compare that to the same thing regarding the Gzeira by Klai, that it becomes hefker. So the Gemara now will explain it's not a raya. Amar Avavon in minado, if it's from here that you're bringing a raya, les hatshmami no klum. From here you can't prove anything. Why? Shamayr es chaydish ha'aviv. Regarding making it a Shana Mu'beres, that's based on a Beferish Pasik. The Torah says that Pesach has to be b'chaydish ha'aviv, in the time of spring. Shemreyu, you have to guard the time. Sheyaviu b'chidushay. That when you have the new Tvua, when you have the new season, the spring, that's the time when Pesach has to be. So what's the Gemara saying? How can you compare to our case that we were talking about Klayim? Over here we were talking about a Gzeira, a Knas, that Chazal, a Machadish. And you want to know if the Koyach of Hefke, Bezna, Hefke, and Chazal are making a Knas, could even pater from Maisris. In the case of making it a Shana Mu'beres, over there it's based on a pasuk. There's a chiyuv to see to it that it should be in Chaydish Aviv. So if even over there the Chacham are the ones that are calculating it and establishing it, but nevertheless because it's based on a mitzvah minatayra that has to be b'Chaydish Aviv, over there it'll pater from the Maisris. But who says you could apply that over here to the Gzeira by Klayim that's purely a Gzeira of Chazal? So there's no raya from here. So the Gemara brings another source. V'haida Amra. So from where do I learn out this chiddush that we're saying here regarding Klayim, that Chachamim could be mafkirit and pateret from Maisa completely? So the Gemara brings a Mishnah and Peya. There the Mishnah says also a case of a knas that Chachamim were mechadish. Godish, a person puts his pile of grain. Shaloi lukat tachto, and below that pile of grain you have the leket. Leket belongs to the aniyim. There's the mitzvah of leket, shikha, and peya. So you have those pieces of grain that are there on the ground that belong to the aniyim, that are below the place of the pile that you're placing it on top of what belongs to the poor people. So the Chachamim made a knas for a person that does such a thing, because he's not allowing the aniyim to take what they left there. So Kol hanegis ba'aretz, everything from your pile on the bottom row that's touching the ground, harehein shalaniyim, that's confiscated from you. Chachamim will mafkir it, and it all belongs to the aniyim. So this is also another case where you see such a gzeira of hefke bezn hefke, they took it away from you, and it all belongs to the aniyim. Omer Rav Ami b'shem Rav Shimon ben Lakish. So he said in the name of Rav Shimon ben Lakish that the Beis Shammai he. This Mishnah only follows the opinion of Beis Shammai that it's fully hefker, and you put it from Meiser because that belongs to the aniyim, the bottom layer on the ground. The Ike Beis Hillel, because if he would be going according to Beis Hillel's opinion, he disagrees. He says aniyim oichlim. Yes, there is a gzeir of Chazal that the bottom row belongs to the aniyim, but Meiser, you still chayiv in Meiser. The hefker of the Chachamim that they said it belongs to the aniyim does not completely exempt it from Meiser. You still chayiv in Meiser. But v'amalei Rabbi Yosi argued and said, Shamainu, we heard about this Mishnah, Shehu Potter Mimaisa Divrei Akel. The Beis Hillel will also agree that Chachamim made the bottom row of your pile that you placed there completely hefke, and it's Potter from Meiser as well. Mishum Knasa, this is the Knas of Chachamim, that it becomes totally hefker and Potter from Meiser. So this is the source for this idea that Chachamim have a koyach to have hefker bezn hefker, not only as a Knas for the person, but also to make it completely hefker, that the aniyim, that there is no mitzvah of Meiser anymore. Okay, we go back to the mitzvah of Machzas HaShekel. Here the Gemara gives the seder of what was done for the mitzvah of Machzas HaShekel. V'chamisha sabai, on the 15th day of Adar, Shulchanai sayu yoshvim b'Medina. So the money changers would sit in the Medina for people to have available to exchange their coins they have for half coins for the Machzas HaShekel. V'chafei, on the 25th of Adar, yoshvu b'mikdash. They would sit in the Beis HaMikdash for people to come and exchange their money. From that time period, from Chafei Adar, when they sat in the Beis HaMikdash, his schilu lemashken. Anyone that was not bringing his machzas hashekel, they would go to the private homes and they would take a collateral to force people to give their machzas hashekel. Esmi memashkenin, from who do you take a mashken that he should give the machzas hashekel? Leviim, v'Yisraelim, v'Geirim, v'Avadim, v'Shuchranim, the freed Avadim. That's in other words, David Kanani that's free, that he's now a full yid. Those are the people that are obligated to give machzas hashekel. So the chiddush here is that this includes even the Leviim as well. Avoloi noshim, v'Avadim, noshim are not obligated. Avadim and David Kanani is not. Or ketanim, and a cotton is not obligated. When it says here ketanim, as we'll see from the Gemara later, ketanim refers to those that are until 20 years old, because by machzas hashekel it says mi ben esrim shana v'mayla. So here ketanim means until the age of 20. V'chol katan shehischel aviv lishkel al yadai, a katan that his father began giving machzas hashekel for him, shuvein paisik. He has to continue giving the machzas hashekel for him until he's 20 years old. Ein memashkenin es hakayanim, the kayanim that are also obligated to give machzas hashekel. We said before Leviim. So the kayanim that are giving machzas hashekel, but you don't take a mashken from them. You don't force them to give it in that way. Mipnei darkei shalom, because of darkei shalom. The Gemara will soon explain what this means. Now here the Gemara brings a machlokes actually regarding the kayanim if they're chayiv to give machzas hashekel or not. Amar Rav Yehuda, so Rav Yehuda said, Heyid ben Bukhri. Ben Bukhri testified, in the Yavna, that kol kayin sheshoikel, a kayin that wants to give and gives the machzas hashekel, eino chayte. He's not sinning. In other words, he said a kayin is really not obligated to give machzas hashekel. If he gives, he's not sinning. Why would I think he's sinning? Because if the machzas hashekel has to be what you give to become part of the money of the tzibur, a kayin that's not obligated, and he's giving his own personal donation, you can't mix your own personal donation together with the machzas hashekel. So he said, no, he can give it and dedicate it fully to become the money of the tzibur, and therefore a kayin, if he wants, he could give. Let Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai argued and said, loiki. A kayin that does not give machzas hashekel is sinning. In other words, a kayin is obligated to give machzas hashekel. The Gemara will bring the sources from the Psukim where we see if they're obligated or not. Elo, then he says an interesting thing. Sha'akayanim doirshim mikra zel atzmam. The kayanim would darshan the following pasuk for themselves to pater themselves of giving machzas hashekel. Because what does it say by kayin? V'chol minchas kayin kolol tiyeh. The mincha of a kayin is this week's parsha. Parsha Sav, yesterday's chumash. So the mincha of a kayin is kolol tiyeh. It has to be completely burnt. Lo yisayachal. You don't eat it at all. Unlike all other minchas where you take out kaimitz and you throw it on the mizbeach and the rest you could eat, the mincha of a kayin has to be fully burnt. So now they would ask the question, what do we do with all the money of the machzas hashekel? You use it to bring the karbanis tzibur. And what's amongst those karbanis tzibur? Hayil ve'oimer, the karban oimer, or shtei alechem, and the lechem aponim. Shalanu, we are taking part in this of the machzas hashekel, so we're also in it. Heich necholim. So then, how could you bring it and it could be eaten? It's not; these are not fully burnt at all. The shtei alechem is not burnt at all. The entire shtei alechem is eaten. The lechem aponim as well, and the oimer as well. So if we're going to be part of the machzas hashekel, so then how could you bring these karbanis and it shouldn't be totally burnt? So this was the pasuk they would darshan for themselves in order to pater themselves.
Why is the Mishnah tell us game v'avodim? What would be the mean that not?
That the gerim and avodim would be pater. I'm not sure. Okay, let's see in the Gemara. I don't think the Gemara explains. It's a good question. So the Gemara, it said in the Mishnah, Eime mashkenin esaktanim. You don't take a mashken from ketanim to force them to give the machzas hashekel. But hol litvaya. However, to demand of them to give the machzas hashekel, you do demand of them. You just don't go this extra step to take a mashken from them. And the reason is because even though the mitzvah minat Torah only begins from Iben Esrim Shana V'Mayla, but midrabanon, the chiyuv of machzas hashekel, does start from the age of bar mitzvah, and therefore we demand of them to give machzas hashekel. Hadad the tamer. This is what we learned. B'shehevi shtei sidus. Once the cotton becomes bar mitzvah and he has shtei sidus, so then he's mechuyev to bring the machzas hashekel midrabanon. Avlam lo yevi beis sidus, but if he does not have beis sidus, if he's not yet bar mitzvah, loy beda. So then he's not obligated at all. He's not on this halacha at all. So then the Gemara says again, Olam mashken ein memashkenin. You do not take a mashkin, afal pi shehevi beisidis, even though he's bar mitzvah already. Which means that when you have a cotton below bar mitzvah, he's totally potter. From the age of bar mitzvah until 20, he's mechuyev midrabanan, but you don't take a mashkin. And then after 20, that's when he's mechuyev minat Torah, and you even take a mashkin from him. Now the Gemara goes to the next part of the Mishnah where it said that from a kayin you don't take a mashkin because of darkei shalom. So the Gemara explains what this means. Kaini, the right way to read the Mishnah is masnisen ein memashkinen es hakayinim. You don't take a mashkin from the kayinim mipnei derech hakovet, because of a special honor that's given to the kayinim. Because the kayinim are the ones that work in the Beis Hamikdash, and the b'chlal, you have to give kayinim the extra covet that you're supposed to give them. That's the reason why you wouldn't take a mashkin from the kayinim. So it seems like the Gemara is switching the lashon from the Mishnah. Instead of reading a darkei shalom, it's supposed to be read mipnei hakovet. Okay, now the Gemara will explain the machlokes regarding kayanim, if they're obligated in machzas hashekel or not. Amar Rav Yehuda Heyed Chulu, so Amar Rav Brachye, time of the Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai. The reason for Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai's opinion that Kayanim are obligated in Machzas HaShekel because it says Zeh Yitnu. And the pasuk Zeh, what is Zeh? Zeh is 5 and 7. Yud Beis Shvatim Yitnu. All 12 Shvatim, including Shevet Levi, and the Kayanim have to give Machzas HaShekel. Rab Tevi b'shem Rav Amnuna. Rab Tevi brought in the name of Rav Amnuna, and he said as follows: Kain Mashivin Chachamim le Rab Yehuda. This is what Chachamim said to Rab Yehuda. Right, Rab Yehuda was the one that said in the name of Ben Buchri that the Kainim are potter from Machzas HaShekel. So this is what the Chachamim said to Rab Yehuda, that you can't have the Kainim contribute Machzas HaShekel. Why not? Because if you're what are you saying? You're saying they're not obligated. But if they want, they can give. But it's a problem. Because if they give, again, like I explained in the Mishnah, the Pashtus, if they give, so then they're not giving as part of Machzas HaShekel. It's their own private donation. So you have mixed into the money of the Tzibur, of Machzas HaShekel, the money of a Yochid, of the Kainim, that are giving their private donation. So then it's going to be a problem. And here the Gemara points out two halachas where a carbon Tzibur has a different halacha than a carbon Yochid. So if you're going to have money of a kain, which is a carbon yachid, so it's going to be a problem. Are we going to treat the karbanis that are going to be brought as the halacha of a carbon tzibur or as a carbon yachid? What are those two halachas? Chatas yachid mesa. By a chatas yachid, the halacha is in certain cases when it becomes tama, you have to leave it to die. Ve'in chatas tzibur mesa. But by the chatas of a tzibur, even when it's possible, there is no such halacha. You don't leave it to die. So there's a distinction. Another distinction, minchas hayachid kreva kol. By the mincha of a yachid, that was what was brought in the Mishnah, or kayin, it's totally burnt. Vei minchas hatzibur kreva kol. The mincha of a tzibur, you never find such a thing that it's totally burnt. So this was the question that Chachamim asked Rabbi Yehuda, if you're going to say that the kayinim are potter of Machzas HaShekel, how could you allow a kayin to bring a private donation as part of Machzas HaShekel? You're going to have these discrepancies in what to do with the karbonis of the Machzas HaShekel. So now the Gemara interjects and says, this is the question they asked Rabbi Yehuda. The Kashya question was asked on this, Meshivin la'adam, davar she'eina moedeh by. Could you ask somebody a question of something that he himself doesn't hold of? And here the Gemara will bring that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of one of these distinctions. That's not in a Mishnah we learned, she'ein chatas tzibur mesa. Yeah, that the Tanakama holds that you have this distinction, that the carbon yachid, when it's pasal, carbon chatas, when it's from a yachid, so then it's left to die, and a carbon tzibur is not left to die. So you have that distinction. But Rabbi Yehuda disagrees and says, Thomas, that even from a carbon tzibur, the chatas is left to die. So why were they asking Rabbi Yehuda a question from a halacha that he himself disagrees with? Okay, the Gemara leaves this as a question. It doesn't answer this because the Gemara brought up another distinction as well. So therefore it still remains a question on Rabbi Yehuda. How could you allow the Kainim to donate to the carbon to the Machzas HaShekel if the carbon Yachid is different than a carbon Tzibur? And now, what was the answer that Rabbi Yehuda gave to the Chachamim? He told them back, he answered them, Zu loy nidvas yachid. This is not a nidvas yachid. When the Kainim are donating, they're not giving it as individuals, because when they gave it, they gave their money and they relinquished any of their own personal connection to this money. They gave it over to the tzibur, that it should become part of the money of the tzibur. True, they weren't obligated in Machzas HaShekel, but once they gave the money for Machzas HaShekel, they're fully giving it away to the tzibur. So there's no issue of having money which is from a yachid mixed in with the money of the tzibur. That was what Rav Yehuda answered. So then the Chachamim responded to this and said, if you're saying that the Kainim, when they give their Machzas HaShekel, they're totally relinquishing their own private money, the control that they have in it, and it's given to the Tzibur, so Kimishu Nidbas Tzibur. So then what they're giving is like a regular Nidbas Tzibur. So then what's the issue? In other words, what the Chachamim are saying is, so why did you say that a Kayin that gives is not a Chayta? What do you mean? Why should it be a Chayta? What should be the issue? If he's totally giving it to the Tzibur, so then anyone that wants can give money to be included, to be part of the Tzibur. So there's no issue whatsoever. Now the Gemara comes back to the Psukim and brings the source of this machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Ben Buchri, and Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, whether the Kainim are obligated to Machzas HaShekel. Ksiv, so in the pasuk by Machzas HaShekel it says, Kol ha'over ala pekudim. Those that are over ala pekudim, which simply means those that were counted. But the Gemara says there's a machlekes about this. Rabbi Yehuda v'Rab Nechemya. Chadamar kol de'ovar beyama. This refers to all those that went through the Yamsuf, by Kriyas Yamsuf, Yite, should give the machzas hashekel. Charana Amar, the other one said, kol de'ovar al pikudaya, like the simple pshat of the pasuk. Anyone that's counted. That's the one that should give the machzas hashekel. So here we see the source for the machlokes where the kainim give machzas hashekel. Mando makol dava beyama yitain. The one that says that anyone that was at Kriyas Yamsuf has to give. Mesayeya Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai. This is a raya to Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai's opinion. Mando makol dava al pikudaya. The one that says that it refers to those that were counted, Yitain has to give Mesayeya le ben Buchri. This is a raya to ben Buchri that says that it excludes Kayanim because the Kayanim were not counted together with Klal Yisrael, so therefore they don't have to give Machzas HaShekel either. On this Ketav Gemara here, regarding the machlokes between ben Buchri and Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, if Kayanim give Machzas HaShekel, there's a huge arichas from the Rebbe in the Rishimis, pages and pages, where the Rebbe is mazbeh this whole union by arichas Gedayla. I'll just say in a Kudah, beautiful vart, the Rebbe explains that Bechlalos, the Aveda of the Levium and the Kayanim, is very different than the rest of Klal Yisrael. Most of Klal Yisrael, their Aveda is to serve the Eibishter B'chol Masecha, B'chol Drachecha, in the Welt. Hashenk and the Kayanim and the Levium, as the Rambam describes it in the end of Hilchas Shmita, they're separated, they're in the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore they got no territory in Eretz Yisrael. They're supposed to be above. And therefore there's a very big svara to say that they should be potter from Machzas HaShekel. Because Machzas HaShekel is related to bringing from the Esa Spheres, from the level of Esa that there is in the half shekel, the Esa Geira, from the Asara Mamorais of the world, and connecting it to the Asara Sadibris of Matan Torah. That's what the two Eser of the two halves of the shekel represent. So the whole Avodah of Machzas HaShekel is related to bringing the Asara Sadibris into the Welt. And that's not an Aveda of a Kain L'chayr. That's not a Kainim have a different Aveda. They're Huvdulu L'sharis in the Beis HaMikdash. That's why Ben Buchri says that they're potter from Machzas HaShekel. However, Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai disagrees. And Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai says the distinction between one Yid and another in Avedas Hashem, and to say that those are Mechuyev and those that are not Mechuyev, all those distinctions come when you look at different Yidden in the category of their Aveda that they belong. But you look at the essence of who a Yid is, and the essence of the Aveda of the Yid, all Yidden are really here in this world to do the same Aveda, to bring the Shechina below. Everyone has their place, everyone has their part that they contribute to it, but Be'etzem, all Yidden have their Aveda. And the Rebbe says this is Merum is in the Zeh. Zeh, which was the source that Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai brought, refers to the Zeh, Kelev Anveir, that they said by Kriyas Yamsuf, the essence of the Neshama that sees the Eibishter. The Ovar Beyama, the Kriyas Yamsuf, refers to this great Gilui Elokos. So mitzad Kriyas Yamsuf, all Yidden are included in the mitzvah of Machzas HaShekel. When it comes to the mitzvah of counting the Yidden, so then there are different Yidden that are in different categories, and you can make a distinction between one and another of who's chayiv and who's potter from Machzas HaShekel. That's the kitzah the Nekudah that the Rebbe explains when you get to this Gemara. Sagt the Mishnah weiter, Afa Pisha Amru, Eime Mashkenim, Noshim, Va'avodim, V'ktanim. So as we said, the Noshim and Avodim and Ktanim, we don't take a Mashken from them to force them to give Machzas HaShekel. Aval im shoklu mekablu miyodam. However, if they choose to give Machzas HaShekel, we accept from them. Nachri va'kuti sheshoklu, the Nachrim and Kutim, which were at a certain time period that came and they were Megai themselves, but they weren't really honest Geirim. So then we don't take a Machzas HaShekel from them, ein mekablu mem. And also, ve'ein mekablu miyodam, we don't accept from them kinei zavim, the karbanis of the birds that are brought for a zav. The kinei zava is the ones that are brought for a zava, the kinei yoldis, the karbanas that are brought for a yoldis, v'chatois, v'ashamais. None of these karbanas do we accept from them. Zeh klal. The klal is kol shenidev v'nidev mekablu miyodam. Nidarim and nidavis, if they want to donate on their own, we accept from them. Kol she'ein nidev v'nidev, any other karbanas that are mentioned in Torah that are not a neder or a nidava, ein mekablu miyodam. We don't accept from them. This is also what it says clearly by Ezra. So it's not only regarding karbanis, but it's even regarding donating to build the Beis HaMikdash. It says there, we're not going to build a Beis HaMikdash for you and for us together. We don't want to take donations from the Goyim to have them contribute to build the Beis HaMikdash. Now the Mishnah comes to a different halacha regarding Machzas HaShekel, and this is the halacha of a Cowboy. When you give the Machzas HaShekel, so you have to add another small coin together with the Machzas HaShekel. So there's two opinions about this. What's the reason for this Cowboy? One reason that Rashi brings in another place is because when you give the Machzas HaShekel, if the coin is not exact, if it's chipped a little bit, you want to make sure that you're giving the full Machzas HaShekel, so you add a drop more. And another reason is if you exchange the money from whatever other coins you have, so as an exchange for the exchange, so you pay a little extra to get that exchange for the machzas hashekel, so you give a kalbain. So the elu shechayavim bekalbain. The following people that give machzas hashekel are obligated to add this kalbain. Leviim, Yisraelim, the Gedim, Va'avadim, Meshuchradim. All these people that are obligated in the mitzvah of machzas hashekel are adding the kalbain. Avoloi kayanim, but not the kayanim. He's going here with the opinion that the kayanim are pater. V'noshim, v'avadim, v'ktanim are also all pater in machzas hashekel. Hashekel al yidei kayin, person that's giving a machzas hashekel for a kayin, al yidei isha for an isha, al yidei eved, al yidei cotton for an eved or a cotton, pater. You also pater for a kalbin. V'im shakal al yadai v'yidei chaveiroi. If you're giving a machzas hashekel, in other words, you're giving a full shekel. You're giving a full shekel, 2 halves for yourself and for your friend. Chayiv b'kalbein achas. You only chayiv for 1 kalbein. And the reason is because the Tanakama holds you only chayiv for a kalbain when you exchange, when you have a full shekel and you want to exchange. So over here, if you're giving a full shekel for 2 people, so there's really only 1 exchange that you need for this to give to the 2 machzas shekel. So therefore, you give 1 kalbain for this. Rab Meir says, Beis kul bainos, that every person that gives machzas shekel, whether you exchange, whether you don't exchange, you always have to add that kalbain. So if you're giving a full shekel for 2 people, so you have to give a kalbain twice. Hanoisen sela, a person that gives a sela, which is a full shekel, v'noitel shekel, and you're taking back change, a half a shekel, chayiv shnei kul bainos. You have to give for this twice that's kalbain. The Gemara will explain why. Hashekel al yad ani val yad shchenoi, a person that's giving a gift. You're giving machzas hashekel for another yid, for someone that's poor, for your neighbor, val yad ben idoi, for someone else of your city. But because you're doing a favor, you're giving a gift for another yid, the mitzvah of machzas hashekel, they parted you from adding this kalbain. Vim hilvun, but if you're only lending the money to them, and then you're just doing it as a shlichus, they have to pay you back, so then chayiv, you will be obligated in the mitzvah, this additional takana to give the kalbain. Ho'achin hashutfim, brothers that are partners. Shechayavim bekalbain, in a case that when they give the machzas hashekel together, they'll be chayav in the kalbain. So in such a case, peturin mi meiser behema, they'll be potter from meiser behema. And the Gemara is going to explain exactly what case this is. Shechayavim b'meiser behema, in a case that these brothers that are shutfim will be obligated in meiser behema, peturin min kalbain, they'll be potter from the kalbain. The kama hu kalbain, how much is this a little bit that you have to add? And the word kalbain actually comes from, that's what the word kal means, like a light, a little amount that you have to add. How much is it? So, ma kesef, 1 ma. Divrei Rab Meir. Chachamim ma'imrim, the chachamim say chatzi ma, that you give a half a ma. So the Gemara here is now going to ask a stira from this Mishnah to the previous Mishnah. What did it say in the beginning of this Mishnah? Afal pisha omru. So in the beginning of the Mishnah it said that the noshim, and the avadim, and the ketanim are potter from machzas hashekel. But then it said, if they want to give, we accept from them. So the Gemara is medayek, holetvoya ein toivin. It says if they want to give, they give. But we don't demand of them to give. But hochat omar, in the previous Mishnah, in Mishnah Gimel it said, toivin, that we do demand of them. In the previous Mishnah it said that we don't take a mashken, but we do demand it of them. V'hochat omar ein toivin, and over here you're saying that we don't even demand it from them. If they want, they can choose to give on their own. So the answer is, like we said before, kan b'shehevi beisidis. In the Mishnah before, when it said we demand from them, it's because after bar mitzvah, so min derabanan they're mechuyev to give. And the kan b'shaloyevi beisidis. And here we're talking about ketanim kipshutai, and therefore they're not obligated to give at all. And if they want, they can give. The next thing it said in the Mishnah was hanuchri anachri va'kuti. Goyim and kutim, we do not accept machzas hashekel from them. Omer Rav Boy says, Tipoter, this Mishnah will be interpreted Kemanda Omer, according to the opinion that holds, Kuti Kenachri, that the Kutim have a status like a Goy, their Gatus was not accepted at all. In Gemara, you have the expression that uses Geire Aroyes. They were Gaitim that only became Gaitim because they were afraid of the lions. Huh? Yeah, in Chulin in many places. So they were not real Gaitim, and therefore they're like Goyim. So over here in the Mishnah as well, we see we don't accept Machtas HaShekel from them. The Spalgin, because there's a machlaikis about this. Kutim Kenachri Divrei Rabbi. Rabbi says the Kutim are like Goyim. Shem Gamliel Omer that Kuti Ki Yisrael L'chol Davar. That no, the Kutim are Geirei Emes. They are real Gaitim, and they're like Yidden, totally like Yidden. So this Amar Mishnah, it puts Kutim together with Nachrim. Amar Rab Lazar, so Rab Lazar said, no, we could change, we have to read the Mishnah differently. Masnisen benachrim. The Mishnah, when it said, don't accept machtas hashekel, it was only talking about the goyim. Ha, bekutim loy, but not by kutim. Kutim, you do take machtas hashekel from them. And Vitani came, we learned this in a Braisa as well, because it says Adam, by the Karbanis Bachlal, it says Adam, and Adam brings a carbon, Larabis is a Gadim. That includes that Gadim bring Karbanis as well. Mikem, when it says Mikem, Lohaitzi es Mumrim. That only comes to exclude Mumrim, which means a Yid, it's a Meshumid, he serves a Vedazara, he can't bring a carbon. But it does not say in this Braisa that Kutim are excluded. So from here I see Kutim can bring all Karbanis, and Kutim can give Machtas HaShekel, because they are real Gadim. But now the Gemara says, so if you're going to tell me that our Mishnah is not talking about Kutim, it's only talking about the Goyim regarding Machzas HaShekel, but then we're going to have a problem with the next line of the Mishnah. Masnisin pligi al Rabbi Lazar. The Mishnah is a question, is arguing on what Rabbi Lazar just said in the next line. What did it say in the next line? You don't accept from them the karbanis, from the zavis, and the yeldes. So who is this talking about? This is talking about a guy. Is it shaykh such a thing to say that there's karbanis, these kinds of karbanis by a guy, that the Mishnah has to say that we don't accept it from them? So who is it talking about? Ella, you're going to have to say, Reish benachrim, according to the Pshat of Rabbi Lazar, first it's telling me about Goyim, that we don't accept Machtas HaShekel from the Goyim, and V'seife bekutim. And the next line, it's talking about the Kutim, that we don't accept the Machtas, we don't accept these Karbanis from Kutim. So this is a question. And says the Gemara, Kain who? Yes, this is the way it is according to Rabbi Lazar. Reish benachrim, the first line of the Mishnah regarding Machtas HaShekel is talking about Goyim, V'seife bekutim. And the next line of the Mishnah is talking about Kutim. Rabbi Yechanan said, so now it's said in the Mishnah also that we see the Psukim by Ezra, that you don't even take donations from the Goyim regarding building the Beis HaMikdash. So Rabbi Yechanan said, B'tchila, in the beginning of the building of the Beis HaMikdash, Ein mekable mehen, we don't accept from Goyim to contribute to the Beis HaMikdash, Loi dava mesuyim, not something which is unique and stands out, that you could see that it's from a Goy. And even something that they'll donate and it's not unique, it gets mixed with other things and it does not stand out, you don't accept from them. But in the end, after the Beis HaMikdash is built already, then mekablan mehem dava she'em mesuyim, we do accept from them something which will not stand out, but ve'em mekablan mehem dava mesuyim, we do not accept from them something that will stand out. If it's something that will stand out, we don't want, it's a disgrace. It's disgraceful for a Yid. It's a bizayin. It's a gnai for Yidden to have something in the Beis HaMikdash that came from Goyim. But when it comes in the beginning to building the Beis HaMikdash, we don't want to accept any donations from Goyim, even things that don't stand out, because it'll come to weaken Yidden from their involvement in the building of the Beis HaMikdash, because the Goyim are contributing as well. That's Rabbi Yechanan's opinion. Rab Shimon ben Lakish says, Bein b'tchila, bein b'sayf, both in the beginning when it comes to building, whether in the end when it comes afterwards, ein mekablu mehen, you don't accept from a guy any donations, loy dava mesuyim, not something that stands out and is unique, loy dava she'ei mesuyim, not something that's not unique, you don't accept any donations from goyim. So the Gemara says, Masnisen, Pliga or Rabbi Yechanan. Our Mishnah seems to be arguing on what Rabbi Yechanan said. Rabbi Yechanan said that you can't, in the end, ubasayif, mekabla mehem, you could accept from them something that's not a dava mesuyim. What did it say in the Mishnah? Ein mekabla mehen hektish unudava lebedek habayis. This is actually not in our Mishnah. This is a Braisa. So in a Braisa it says that you don't accept from a guy anything from hektish, any donation for bedek habayis, which is basayif, even after the Beis HaMikdash was built. As that's what the Pashtas, we're talking over here about bedek habayis. The Beis HaMikdash was built and you don't accept anything from the Goyim. And Rabbi Yechanan said that basayif you do accept from them. So Pasala, he answers this, bein betchila, bein besayif, or bulvad dava mesuyim. Even according to my opinion, that I said that there's a difference between the beginning and the end, but it's only a dava mesuyim. If it's a dava mesuyim, so then both in the beginning and in the end you don't accept from them. So this braisa that says that you don't accept on a dava for the bedek habayis, it was talking about something which is unique, that stands out. You can see it belongs to Goyim. Rab Shimon ben Lakish Shama, what did Rab Shimon ben Lakish say? Ben betchila, ben besayif, ben mekabelem, loy dava mesuyim v'chol. That you don't accept from Goyim any donations, anything for the Beis HaMikdash. In the beginning, in the end, doesn't make a difference. So now Masnisa and Pliga Rab Shimon ben Lakish. Our Mishnah seems to be saying, not like Rab Shimon ben Lakish. The Tanikas in our Mishnah it said, Akel Shavin, everybody agrees, Shehain, again, sorry, this is not in our Mishnah, this is in a Mishnah in Erechim, it's not in our Mishnah over here. So in the Mishnah over there it says, everyone agrees, Shehain Neidrin, they can make a neder and give karbanis, Vin Nidarin, and you can make a neder for them to give. So this over here we're saying that the Goyim could make a neder to bring, and someone can make a neder for them to bring. Pasala, so Rab Shimon Lakish will answer this, oila. It only refers to a carbon oila. They can bring a carbon oila. That, yes, like we said in our Mishnah over here, that they can bring in the Darim and the Davas. They can't give any other money to donate to the Mesa Mikdash, but a carbon oila they could give. So the Gemara asks, Niche, this is understood, Neidrin, that it says that they can give a carbon oila, Neidrin oila. Nidarin oila, someone is making a neder for their sake to bring a carbon oila. What does that mean? That someone else is making a neder for their sake to bring it? Elo, so the Gemara answers, yeah, what this means is, Kisha'ama Yisrael Harei Alai, a Yid says, Harei Alai Oila, I'm going to bring a Oila, and V'shama Nachri, and a guy hears this, and V'amar, and the guy says, Masha Omar Zeh Alai, what the Yid said, I will also bring. That's what Nidarin means, that he heard the Yid saying it, and he responds and he says that he's going to bring the same thing.